He pounds babies in Mortar for wealth and fame until this happened. Once upon a time, in a bustling village, there was a wealthy man named Otieno. Otieno hadn't always been rich. In fact, he was once poor, working as a simple farmer with barely enough to eat. But one day, his fortune changed. He claimed to have met a powerful healer in the forest who gave him a secret charm. And within months, Otieno's wealth grew beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The villagers were in awe. Otieno wore the finest clothes, his home was built from the finest materials, and he threw lavish feasts with food and music that would go on for days. People from all around came to see the man who had gone from a nobody to the wealthiest, most famous man in the land. But wealth changed Otieno. He became arrogant and looked down on the very villagers he had once called his friends. Do you think wealth is for the simple-minded? He scoffed. Only the clever and daring can handle this much power. Soon, Otieno began hiring guards to keep others away from his estates, and his once open home became a fortress. Yet, whispers began spreading in the village. People noticed that Otieno's riches seemed to grow even when he didn't trade or farm anymore. He'd no longer go to the market, no longer harvest the land. Instead, every few nights, Otieno would slip away into the forest alone, carrying a strange mortar and pistol wrapped in a cloth. Rumors began to spread that Otieno had struck a deal with the dark forest. Only one person dared to confront him, his childhood friend, Mwangi. Mwangi had watched Otieno grow proud and distant, and he worried for his friend. One night, as Otieno prepared to leave for the forest, Mwangi blocked his path. Otieno, he said, "You are walking a dark path. People are saying strange things about you. They say you are using the mortar to harm innocent lives. They say you pound children for riches." Otieno laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "Those are just foolish tales, Mwangi. Jealous people spreading lies because they cannot have what I have." "But how did you gain such wealth, Otieno? We were once the same. You are a simple farmer like me." Otieno's eyes darkened. "We were the same, but I was willing to pay the price for greatness. If you are too afraid to understand, then leave me, let me be." Mwangi felt a chill run down his spine, but he let Otieno pass. He couldn't help but feel there was more to these rumors than just jealousy. So as Otieno disappeared into the night, Mwangi decided to follow him. Through the windy forest paths, Mwangi crept, keeping his distance until Otieno reached a hidden grove, shrouded in mist. In the center of the grove stood a stone altar, and Mwangi watched in horror as Otieno pulled out a small bundle from his bag. It was swaddled in cloth, and Mwangi thought he saw something small moving inside. A cold realization hit him. Otieno had indeed brought a baby. Otieno placed the bundle in the mortar and raised his pistol, whispering strange words, his voice dripping with greed. "With each life, I grow stronger, more powerful." But before Otieno could strike, a deep voice boomed through the grove, shaking the ground beneath him.
Otieno.
It roared, sending a chill through his bones. Otieno froze, his hands shaking. Out of the shadows stepped an old man, cloaked in rags but with eyes that burned like fire. "Who are you, Otieno?" stammered with pride, giving way to fear.
"I am the one who gave you that wealth, the one you begged for power when you were nothing but a desperate man. And I warned you, do not take more than your share, but you could not resist, could you?"
Otieno's face twisted with anger. "You promised me power, fame, wealth. I gave you what you asked for. This is my reward." The old man shook his head.
"But you were greedy, Otieno. Each time you demanded more than your offering would allow, sacrificing innocent lives for your own desires."
Otieno's arrogance fled. "I deserve this. I am the greatest in the land. I earned this wealth and fame. No one can take it from me." With a snap of his fingers, the grove filled with a brilliant flash of light. When Otieno opened his eyes, he was standing alone in the middle of his estate. But something felt different. He rushed to his house, expecting to see his fine possessions. But his home was bare, stripped of all the luxuries he had surrounded himself with. His clothes were rags and his gold was gone. Confused and desperate, Otieno ran to the village, but the villagers only stared in shock, for Otieno's face had aged overnight, wrinkled and tired. He looked like a man who had spent decades toiling under the sun. His voice was weak, his steps shaky. "My wealth, my power," he cried to anyone who would listen. But the villagers laughed at him, remembering his pride, his arrogance. They turned away, unwilling to help the man who had once looked down on them. Otieno was left with nothing, not even the pride that had driven him. Each night he would wander the empty streets of the village, a shadow of his former self, begging for scraps from those he had once insulted. And every so often, he would hear a faint whisper from the forest, reminding him of his greed and arrogance, a cold voice that would haunt him forever. Rumor had it that he hired a stranger from the neighboring village who supplies the babies twice in a month for a sacrifice. This stranger would travel miles and cross rivers to get these babies for him, so that Otieno wouldn't be suspected by anybody. So who was this stranger? Nobody knew. Otieno became mad. The last that was heard of him was that he was found by the wayside, lying dead and cold. The villagers told his tale for generations, a warning of what happened to those who lose themselves to pride and greed. And the story became a legend, a reminder that wealth taken from the innocent will always come at a terrible price.